We're doing our NL Central positional rankings. I know people loved this last year. I really don't know, but don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. I know I'd love doing it. All right. So today we're going to start with center field since I think the center fielders or the outfield in general in this division's pretty good for every team. And obviously the Cubs' best player last year was in center field / first base. But the Cubs overall, value-wise, got a lot in center field last year, believe it or not. So shall we go through the list? And then
let's see the list so we know what we're choosing from.
All right, so the list is, and Sarah's bringing it up here on YouTube, Cody Bellinger and Mike Tauchman for the Cubs, and obviously PCA could be added to that down the road. Will Benson and Jake Fraley for the Reds, and TJ Friedl would have been there, but he fractured his wrist.
I believe it was a wrist fracture. Yeah, this is also like looking at what MLB.com and Fangraphs has kind of the projected.
This is what going into opening day will be, right? And then for the Pirates, it's Michael Taylor and Jack Suwinski. Suwinski played 126 games in center last year, but they just signed Taylor, who was a Gold Glove winner.
He has won the Gold Glove in the past.
Or he has won in the past. Had a decent year with the Twins last year. Then the Cardinals have
2021 Gold Glove, by the way, for Michael A. Taylor.
Okay. Thank you. Credit to you. Then the Cardinals have Dylan Carlson and Tommy Edman. I believe Tommy Edman could miss the start of the season.
Yeah. Oh, no, he has been ruled out for opening day, but it's not said if it's going to be a
long-term thing.
Yeah.
So he might miss, he might have an IL stint, the first week of the year, whatever. And then for Milwaukee, obviously the highly touted prospect, Jackson Chourio and Garrett Mitchell. So it's kind of hard to tell. Obviously, there's no one in the division that played all 162 in center field last year. But obviously, in the Cubs scenario, Bellinger played a lot of center. And then as the season went along, with the Cubs' issues at first base, they moved Bellinger over to first, and they played Tauchman in center, right? And other teams go through these types of scenarios too. So it's kind of hard to just pick one player, so we put two players for each team. So shall I give my five?
Go ahead and give your five.
All right. Yeah. So my five, I'm going Bellinger number one. Yeah. Or Bellinger and Tauchman number one. All right. Bellinger was a 4.4 F4 last year. Mike Tauchman was a 1.8 F4. So what that is, over 6 WAR combined in center field for last year. That's the best in the division. All right. Far none. Yeah. The Cubs got the most value in center field last year than any team in the NL Central. So I'm going with Bellinger and Tauchman. After that, it's kind of tough to figure out 2 and 3 for me, but I think I'm going to go with the Pirates with Taylor and Suwinski. Suwinski, 2.8 F4 last year in 120 games. Taylor, 1.7 F4. He has a defense. He hit 21 homers with the Twins. I just think there's a lot of value combined. And then I think if Friedl was healthy, I would probably go with the Reds because he was a 4.4 F4 player. But he's not healthy, and he's got to, who knows how long he's going to be out, right? So after that, I think I'm going to go with the Reds just because there's more proven there. But obviously, there's a lot of these could change. And the way that I'm doing this, again, is going into the season. This isn't based off potential. This isn't based off.
It's based off what they did last year.
Yeah, it's all based off what they did last year. All right. So with Fraley and Will Benson 1.7 F4 last year. Of course, he only played mainly corner outfield, and Fraley a 1.4. He played corner outfield and also DH. So Friedl being out for them is kind of a big deal. So I would probably have the Reds as the second best here in the division if he was healthy. But I'll go with them third just because there's still a lot to be proven for the Brewers and the Cardinals. All right, Chourio, top 5 prospect in baseball. Probably going to be a stud. But again, we're not going off potential. We don't know. So I can't take the Brewers ahead of the Cardinals here. I'm going the Cardinals at 4 with Tommy Edman and Dylan Carlson. Which ain't saying too much in my personal opinion. I think Lars Nootbaar played some center field last year too.
He's also hurt right now.
He's also hurt. I think there's a lot of – if you look at it on paper, You can say that the Cardinals are probably better than some of the ones that I've already listed, but Tommy Edman, 2.3 F4 in 42 games. Dylan Carlson, 0.4 F4 in 50 games in center field last year. Edman, his value comes to the fact that he's just really versatile, can play all over the field, play shortstop, can play second. But again, we're talking about center field here. I think he's going to play a lot more center field this year than in the infield, since they have so many guys in the infield with one of their highly touted prospects in Mason Wynn probably getting a good run this year. So I think entering the year they're probably going to go with Dylan Carlson, and he just hasn't been what I think the Cardinals hoped he would be at this point. He has a lot to prove. But Garrett Mitchell, 19 games last year. He was hurt all of last year. And then again, Churio hasn't proved anything. So at this point, I have to put them last. But again, potential-wise, they could easily be second or third on this list. But again, as we're going into it, it's all based off what they did last year. And to me, the Cubs run away with this.
Yeah, you know what I think's kind of interesting about it is that I was looking at Fangraphs. I know you know I like to spend a lot of time on the Fangraphs, and they give their
change of heart.
Yeah, they give their power rankings each year for position around Major League Baseball. The Cubs going into last season were 19th in all of baseball for center field. Why? Because you had no idea what you were going to get from Cody Bellinger. Now, you hope you have a better idea of it now. I'm curious to see. They just started today or yesterday putting out their projections for power rankings by position. They haven't done center field yet. So I'm curious where the Cubs jump to now. I agree that if you had done this last year, I would have said the Cubs are lower on the list. Or you could at least make that argument if you're in one of the other cities. But they're the only team on that list with a center fielder that's won an MVP, that's played at the level of an MVP. You might have a 5-tool prospect. You might have the best prospect in baseball out there, but one guy's won MVP and he's on the Cubs. And the guy behind him, you also had no idea what to expect of last year because he was coming from playing international baseball. He'd been in the majors, sure, but you didn't know what Mike Tauchman was going to give. He turned out to get the summer Mike Tauchman, right? Yeah. So now you have two guys, and then you have the depth of PCA adding to that mix, your top prospect in the organization. So I don't know that anybody has three center fielders that can even come close to competing with what the Cubs have, at least in the National League Central. After that, I agree with Cody. Honestly, it's kind of a crapshoot. I could see any team after that falling in line in any other order, right? Like I could see the Brewers jumping to number 2. I could even see the Brewers jumping to number 1 in some – I see a lot of teams jumping to number 1, but going into the season, I would have to put the Cubs at the top of the list. And after that, honestly, it doesn't really matter. I think they're all so close. It's one of those rare positions where I feel like almost everybody can make an argument for being number 2, and everybody can make an argument for being near the bottom of the list too, because there's very little that separates that group after the Cubs. I think the Cubs are clearly the power ranking for us would be number 1 in the Central.
Yeah, no, especially with TJ Friedl being hurt to start the year and, extended absence, it looks like the Cubs look, at least on paper and based on what they did last year, with the Reds not having TJ Friedl, the Cubs look to have the best center field mix right now with Bellinger and Mike Tauchman, as you guys have been saying. I do think if you look at the list, and again, especially with TJ Friedl out for the Reds right now, just behind the Cubs or what, I don't know how I'd rank them, honestly. Like, it feels like kind of what we've talked about with this division as a whole, where it's a lot of good. All the teams feel pretty good and feel even a little bit dangerous. Even, I've said it before, I don't think whoever finishes in 5th place in this division is going to be so far back of whoever finishes first. I think this division's a little closer on paper than maybe people give it credit for. But I look at this center field ranking this kind of the same way, where Bellinger and Tauchman, in my opinion, that's the grouping that would lead this right now. But honestly, between 2 and through 5, I I could see Jackson Chourio and Garrett Mitchell, that pairing of center fielders. Obviously, Mitchell's going to be playing probably left field for the Brewers, but like I could see that by the end of the season, that depth chart being higher than 5, or the Pirates with Michael A. Taylor and Jack Sawinski as part of that depth chart. Maybe the top 2 on that depth chart, they could be higher than that, right? TJ Friedel comes back, and all of a sudden the Reds may have the best grouping in the division, right? So I do think the way, if you look at all 5 together, it does kind of reflect how we kind of feel about this division, and that I don't think you can count anyone out. I think you have to be mindful that none of these teams are like tanking anymore. It doesn't feel like a lot of everyone in the division is going after it, and maybe some more than others, but I don't see tanking teams right here. So you can't count any of these teams out. Any of these teams could be kind of dangerous.
Yeah,
you're right, Ryan.
And then again, groupings.
Yeah, perfect reflection of the division, and it shows you also how one guy can change everything, right? Like if the Cubs didn't sign Bellinger, this is no offense to Mike Tauchman and PCA, but I could see everybody else in the division saying Tauchman and Pete Crow-Armstrong, they're the lowest in the power rankings for the division.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So the Cubs could literally go from first to last in the division, but it shows that is a multiple guys for each team. I think it shows that it's a real position of strength within the National League Central. They got some pretty good center fielders. The Cubs could literally be first. They could almost be last. And just the signing of Bellinger, who again, it's no given that he's going to do what he did last year, but because he's reached a level that nobody else has, I don't know how you couldn't put the Cubs first.
We all silly like the mayor.